Africa, it's the future. 1, 2, y'all. Africa, it's the future. 1, 2. Africa, it's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. Africa, it's the future. 1, 2, y'all. Africa, it's the future. 1, 2. Africa, it's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. Welcome to the future. United States, Africa, we salute ya. A new state of mind, I introduce ya. Close your eyes and visualize the rise of a new paradigm. Solar powered skyscrapers is bound to blow your mind. Just launched another satellite flight into orbit. The African space program is so ironic how our currency's worth more than $1 or the euro. Without the foreign aid, unemployment near zero.
Jumbo revolutionary greetings. Welcome to the 32nd annual GarveyFest Celebration. My name is Sister Tasha, and I am a member of PRSP, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. PRSP is a nonprofit organization that is strongly committed to Pan-Africanism. When we talk about Pan-Africanism, we talk about the total liberation and unification of Africa under a socialist government. The dedicated members of PRSP and Africans on the Move make it their priority to raise the level of consciousness of African people by providing programs such as a Kwanzaa celebration every year, a monthly podcast called Africans Must Unite, in which you can catch it on iCloud, SoundCloud, and YouTube. In addition, an annual calendar that highlights pertinent information and dates that remind us of the events from the past. And lastly, Watoto Yahuru Shule, which is a children's school that serves youth ages 1 through 18 years, in which the principles of humanism, collectivism, and egalitarianism are integrated into themed African lessons. So, today's program, our theme comes from PRSP's 2021 calendar. Heed the words of the warriors, guided messages to uplift our African people. So today, in our program, we will feature various groups, and those various organizations are Pan-African organizations, and they are going to share a revolutionary warrior that have uplifted their organization in some form or fashion. So, invite others, text others to join, sit back, relax, and enjoy our 32nd annual GarveyFest celebration. Enjoy the show and share something you have learned.
Greetings. My name is Brother Melvin. I am with the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. Just wanted to take a moment to briefly talk to you all about why we celebrate GarveyFest, why we recognize Marcus Garvey, Amy Ashwood, and Amy Jacques Garvey, and the Universal Negro Improvement Association African Communities League. So enraged at the suffering and really was what was seen as universal injustices of African people throughout the diaspora. Marcus Garvey, along with Amy Ashwood, organized the Universal Negro Improvement Association African Communities League in July of 1914. The Universal Negro Improvement Association was designed to rebuild a positive social, cultural, psychological, and political life for African people around the world. The African Communities League was established to um, create the economic stability and independence in the African communities of the world. Amy Ashwood writes, "Our love for Africa and our concern for the welfare of our race urged us to immediate action." The UNIA ACL saw land as a key to the liberation of an oppressed people, and the only rightful land base that belongs to African people, no matter where they're born around the world, is Africa. Garvey wrote, "We are determined to solve our own problems by redeeming our motherland Africa from the hands of alien exploiters, and found therein a government, nation of our own, strong enough to lend protection to the members of our race scattered all over the world, and to compel the respect of the nations and races of the earth." And thus began the efforts of the UNIA ACL. The final gift of the Garveys and the UNIA to their people is clear. They help to educate their people about their noble identity as African people, challenging them to, quote, "Rise up, you mighty race." Observing that, quote, "The powers opposed to African progress will not be influenced in the slightest by mere verbal protests." They demonstrated the power and necessity of developing a revolutionary, not a reform, organization for the purpose of mobilizing for liberation. Marcus told his people, quote, that "you are a people most favorably suited for getting what you want through organization," end quote. Most importantly, the Garveys and the UNIA inspire their people to work to reclaim and to unify their homeland, Africa, no matter if they never see the day of its redemption. Quote, "All of us may not live to see the higher accomplishment of an African empire so strong and powerful as to
every
fulfill
little
the
thing
respective
when she
mankind, but we in our lifetime can work and act after
She
the
struggle
dream of
for every
possibility
little thing when she
within
be.
another generation."
She struggled to go school, she struggled to vote. Olufemilayo Anikulapo.
So, I'd like to take a few moments to talk some about the invaluable role played by the women in the evolution and development of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, African Communities League. Their contribution was just off the chart. And while women have always played a tremendous role have always played a tremendous role in the development of Pan Africanism. It's in the 20th century, really, when their role has been not only very prominent but also documented. Prior to the 20th century, much of the Pan African movement was more in migration. But from 1900 going, is characterized by more of an organization. There are, of course, conferences and congresses and conventions, but there are all sorts of organizations. The most significant one being the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And again, the role was tremendous. We could begin by talking about the Garvey wives, of course. Amy Ashwood Garvey co-founded the UNI in Jamaica, I think around 1914 or so, and helped to facilitate its movement to the U.S. Probably around 1916 or so. And, this is an amazing woman. This was a Renaissance woman, a tireless worker, giving speeches and writing, multi-talented. And, of course, even after her and Garvey parted ways, she was still a major figure, traveling extensively, including in Africa. Then, of course, Amy Jacques Garvey, who was a phenomenal wordsmith who just wrote tirelessly, especially in the Negro World, the newspaper of the UNIA. And you could see her evolution as a progressive woman, as a Pan-Africanist, as a revolutionary, because she just became more political and radical in her writings. But she was a tireless worker for the Garvey movement throughout the 20s and 30s and 40s until her very end. till she passed. But certainly while in the United States, especially when Garvey was railroaded and sent to prison, she kept the organization alive by her speeches and her writings. And of course, compiled the Garvey speeches and writings into the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, and which was used to raise money for Garvey's trial. And so Amy Jacques Garvey was a major Pan-Africanist figure. Again, even long after they parted ways, she was still keeping UNA alive. But more importantly, we have this so many outstanding female leaders in the Garvey movement. I have some names somewhere. Let's see. I can maybe just read some of the names. We should just, say their names so that history records what they've done. These are women that you can't always find online, but they were top leaders within the UNIA. They include Emily Christmas Kinch, Carrie Merrow Ledet, Mary E. Johnson, Janie Jenkins, Marie Dutch Atlier, Irene Mormon Blackston, Sarah Branch, Miami, Leona Turpu Dermena, Georgiana O'Brien, Eleanor Robinson White, and of course the extremely talented Henrietta Vinton Davis. She was second in line, second in charge, second in command of the UNIA. But more importantly, it's the foot soldiers, the ordinary foot soldiers who kept the UNIA alive, the female foot soldiers who did so much, the masses of the people. These are women who don't often receive the credit. You don't know their names, you don't know what role they played, but the organization could not have survived, could not have evolved without them. And that's always been the case in the Pan-African movement. Women have played these roles, have made this contribution, but again, rarely get the credit. And maybe the best example of this is the Black Cross nurses of the UNIA. Honestly, these women were medically trained or have had practical training in first aid, and were engaged in what today we call public health. They were moving all around in people's homes and communities, educating them about nutrition and how to prevent disease, how to keep your children healthy. And so this was a major contribution towards the UNIA realizing its main objective, which was independence and self-reliance for the African people. And so this was an outstanding example of it. And the women of the Garvey movement were kind of second to none in their development and evolution, and contributed to the development and evolution of the Garvey movement. So this is just a small bit. Again, there's fortunately more books and articles are being written on the women in general and certain individual women as well. And so we want to encourage everyone to study their contribution, and we hope that, of course, the GarveyFest will be another huge success and make its monumental contribution, continue to make its monumental contribution to the realization of Pan-Africanism, which is, of course, one united socialist Africa. Thank you.
Greetings, comrades. My name is Nick Davis, and I'm a member of Pan-African Community Action, or PACA for short. In the past 400 years, Africans the world over have been fighting for liberation against the forces of white supremacy, colonialism, and capitalism, just to name a few. I would like to take a few moments to pay homage to 3 such ancestors and to explain how their contributions inform our praxis. Kwame Nkrumah, born in what was then called Gold Coast and is now known as Ghana, taught us that all people of African descent, whether they live in North or South America, the Caribbean, or any part of the world, are Africans and belong to the African nation. This is to say that so long as any African is not free on this planet, none of us are free. Such freedom cannot be realized in the absence of international Pan-African solidarity, which is why PACA is a proud member of the Black Alliance for Peace. Thank you, Kwame Nkrumah, and may you rest in power. In addition to the necessity of international Pan-African solidarity, it is crucial to understand that what we seek in liberation is the power to oversee our own self-determination and to be the stewards of our own well-being without interference or dependence upon those who wish to keep us in bondage. Regarding this, Kwame Ture, who was born in Trinidad and Tobago, reminds us that one does not fight to influence change and then leave the change to someone else to bring about. This is best exemplified in PACA's push for community control of police, which posits that the people should have the power to make decisions about their own security within their own communities and not the violent U.S. police state. Thank you, Kwame Ture, and may you rest in power. Lastly, it would be remiss of me to speak nothing of Assata Shakur's impact on our organizing. Born in the United States, she put herself on the front lines of the black struggle up until she was forced to flee the Imperial Corps for Cuba. In spite of this, she reminds us of why we dare to struggle and to win in the first place. She says, part of being a revolutionary is creating a vision that is more humane, that is more fun too, that is more loving. It's really working to create something beautiful. To fight for black liberation is perhaps one of the most radical acts of love imaginable. Not only do we fight to dismantle the systems that oppress us, but to create the antithesis of said systems, so that every African around the globe may live a dignified life. Thank you, Assata Shakur, and may you live to see the day that we all lose our chains. Aluta continua.
Greetings, Brother Pajuf from Chicago of the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party and Africans on the Move, addressing the primacy of Africa.
Greetings, Africans from all over the world. Greetings to our party folks who are struggling to build a revolutionary organization for the liberation of our people. The thank should go first and foremost to comrades in Milwaukee who were very, very good in consistently organizing the Garvey get-together to remember, our great visionary, Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who forever has reminded us the primacy of Africa, the significance of a people being liberated, to have a sense of freedom, a sense of independence, and development and progress. The primacy of Africa is almost correspondent with the significance of human civilization. Because the first phase of humanity, Africans were able to develop and be imitated by other civilizations. All the civilizations that have existed after the Egyptian civilization, we came out south of Africa all the way up north, and the Egyptian civilization was never developed by the Mediterranean folks. The Mediterranean folks all crossed the Mediterranean into Africa to get a sense of recognition, a sense of identity. There is no civilization that you can talk about, across the Mediterranean and Asia that did not talk about the success of their civilization predicated on their conquering of Egypt. So Africa became the bread basket, of the world. the Mediterranean folks, the Greeks came in. Alexander the Great was surprised when he landed in Egypt. So the Roman Empire, so the Byzantine, all of them were able to borrow stuff from Africa, but history being distorted, we do not know the significance of the continent of Africa. Being a breadbasket of the continent of Africa, of the world, Africa, it became a nightmare for the continent of Africa in terms of empires coming in to the continent of Africa, plundering, enslaving our people, and therefore historically redefine the sense of the significance of the primacy of Africa. 1.3 billion Africans on the continent of Africa. Almost 800 million dispersed globally, all under the condition of the Arab slave trade and the Euro-Christian slave trade that dispersed us. Therefore, the significance of Africa has become an international phenomenon, an inevitable international phenomenon as the European civilization begin to diminish. Africa, with 1.3 billion people and 35 to 40% of them are youthful, are going to restore the continent of Africa, and globally. The liberation of Africa, therefore, is the liberation of humanity. Long live the African Revolution. Let us organize more and more, and be determined that only through organization will we liberate ourselves from the continent of Africa. The upsurge of the European post-1492 redefined the globe, and it became a nightmare for the continent of Africa in the dispersal through the Atlantic, in the return to colonize us, suppress us from independence, until the struggle against neocolonialism today. So the struggle is going to emphasize the need for African people to get organized globally, to look at the significant return of the continent that belongs to African people, and to save humanity. Forward ever, backwards never.
The primacy of Africa. In Nkrumah's yearning for African unity and Pan-Africanism, the total liberation and unification of Africa under a scientific, socialist, economic system, in the early 60s continues to haunt Africa and her children the world over. The inevitability of African unity is highly pronounced and predicated by our quest for survival. Political survival, economic survival, and social justice. This war that has been waged since our kidnapping from Africa in the 1600s led to the depopulation of Africa, the killing, kidnapping, and engaging in exploitative relationships, using millions of Africans as soldiers in European wars, destroying the male population and the balance of social-economic relationships on the continent. It created forced labor on the plantations under psychological and physiological oppression. The dehumanization that occurred through the production of an exploitative system where an ideology led to sham constitutions throughout the continent and unjust legal systems that continue to oppress Africans today. According to U.S. statistics, Africa leads the world with economic poverty. More than 56% of the population or 413 million people living in impoverished settings continues to happen. This is structural. This is by design. And there has been no change. Keeping Africa as a raw material producer and agricultural producer services every other continent or country outside the borders of Africa. Raw materials that make Africa primary include petroleum, natural gas, phosphates, iron ore, gold, diamonds, fish, titanium, aluminum, timber, uranium, cobalt, copper, coffee, tobacco, coal, water, textiles, shea butter, rubber, plants. Economic structures need a psychologically impoverished Africa to maintain cheap labor across the continent and access to resources that benefit the exploiting countries' financial systems and their way of life. Without Africa, they would collapse. Socializing and forcing Africa to adopt Western structures, the education system, the political system, the religious system, social beliefs and practices make this happen so easily, and sadly, it's perpetuated throughout the world. We must open our eyes. Africans have in the past and continue now to this day to fight for justice and liberation. There have been a variety of strategies employed at any one time by as many different divisions of people that exist amongst us. We are here to collectively stress the need to engage in the strategy outlined by Kwame Nkrumah. Pan-Africanism is the only solution that stresses, 1, African unity for all people of African descent and a united Africa. The repatriation movement, or the Back to Africa movement that was advocated by Garvey and the UNIA, are strong today. There are many people leaving Africa, the Caribbean, leaving America, the Caribbean, and Europe to make it back to Africa. We just need the countries there to be receptive to grant us that homecoming and that citizenship and the identity as being Africans that we so need. You know, back in the 80s and before in Gambia, the Roots festivals that were held, citizenship was granted to Africans who came there, and many of them are still claiming their citizenship today. There are groups in Gambia, Senegal, Tanzania seeking to settle, gain citizenship, and just be recognized as Africans. The primacy of liberating and taking control of Africa and its resources, that's a must. The economic system, scientific socialism that serves the needs of the masses rather than the desires of a few, that's something we must open our eyes to. All of this is predicated on the values of humanism, collectivism, and egalitarianism. Our efforts for Pan-Africanism are stronger and more essential than ever. When you see and feel the stranglehold of imperialist oppression, do something about it. Join a Pan-African revolutionary organization. If you don't like those that are in existence, create your own. You are stronger as a group than you are as an individual. Study and analyze the tactics of the oppressor. Learn the history. Don't fall for the okie doke. Capitalism is a tool of oppression. Socialism is for the good of all. The exodus to Africa is being enjoyed by many people. You don't have to have millions to make life better. I want to thank the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party and Africans on the Move in Milwaukee for their GarveyFest that has been held now for over 30 years. We love and appreciate you all. Forward ever, backwards never.
Greetings, African sisters and brothers, and all allies who have joined us for our 32nd GarveyFest celebration. My name is Brother Melvin, and I'm a member of the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. The theme for this year's celebration is Heed the Words of the Warriors, guided message to uplift African people. From the outset, we honor the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League under the leadership of Marcus Mosiah Garvey and Amy Ashwood and Amy Jacques Garvey. It was Marcus Garvey who said, "Africa for the African, at home and abroad." And that just reminds us that all people of African descent, wherever they were born or raised, are African and owe their allegiance to the future liberation of Africa. As an African born in the diaspora, I understand and we understand in organization through study of political education, the primacy of land, not only in terms of our identity, but as the single most important factor in the fight for true African liberation. So when we look at the material conditions of the African throughout the world, whether we are talking about the social unrest in South Africa, where dozens of men, women, and children have died, mainly because of the structural inequalities and poverty that exist there, and not so much about the recent arrest of former President Zuma, or if we're talking about the crisis in Haiti that has been fermented by foreign intervention, namely the United States as well as France, or even if we're talking about the condition of the African here in the U.S., who are the constant victims of racial degradation, structural inequalities, and state-sanctioned violence against Black bodies. You know, our struggle for liberation can appear to be extremely daunting. And the smothering tentacles of capitalism can foster a sense of hopelessness and the belief that the struggle is such an uphill battle and is being fought on so many fronts that we cannot win. And other times we may experience battle fatigue, which in the case of the African is the cumulative result of a natural race, class, and gender-related stress response to the oppression caused by capitalism. This is why we need to look at our ancestors and heed the words of these warriors who certainly toiled through conditions far worse than what we are currently experiencing. And we look to them for wisdom, we look to them for guidance, for courage, and the belief that we can win this battle, that we can win this struggle for true African liberation. To that point, I would like to share a couple of quotes that I like to consider when the weight of capitalism and its tentacles are present in my psyche. The first quote is from the Martinique-born philosopher, psychoanalyst, theoretician, Pan-African revolutionary member of the Algerian Liberation Movement, National Liberation Front, and author of Wretched of the Earth, Frantz Fanon, who writes, quote, "Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it," end quote. I like this quote because it is instructive and direct. To discover your mission presupposes the need for study and an examination of one's material conditions. To fulfill your mission will require the marriage between the theory that comes out of your study with your practices. One can only betray their mission if they are aware of it, but choose not to confront those contradictions that are present in society. The second quote that I would like to share comes from the great Pan-African socialist leader and the architect of the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, the PAIGC, Amilcar Cabral, who writes, quote, "One form of struggle which we consider to be fundamental, we refer here to the struggle against our own weaknesses. Our experiences has shown us that in the general framework of daily struggle, this battle against ourselves, no matter what difficulties the enemy may create, is the most difficult of all, whether for the present or the future of our people," end quote. I love this quote as well because it speaks to the internal struggle that we encounter at some point. Living under a capitalist reality, we get caught in the grind that is produced by the division of labor and capital. Society is structured in a way where the toiling masses or the working class are constantly being exploited by the capitalist class. And in order to advance economically, one must be willing to engage in the same form of exploitation. So it is your party principles that will serve as your compass and remind you that your political line is correct. Samora Michel says in his book, Establishing People's Power to Serve the Masses, that, quote, "In building and using our power, we bear within us in our ideas, habits, and customs all the disfigurements created by the old power, capitalism. We must, therefore, constantly correct our working methods and apply the scalpel of criticism and self-criticism to lop off the enormously weighty and destructive burden bequeathed by the ancient society." The consistency between these two quotes is the necessity for being in an organization that will provide the principles and revolutionary guidelines to support you and provide the requisite analysis of the material conditions that produces a defeatist attitude and destructive personality. Finally, I would like to share words from Sister Asada Shakur, who writes, quote, "We need to be weapons of mass construction, weapons of mass love. It is not enough to just change the system. We need to change ourselves," end quote. This quote for me highlights how the agape style love of our people should move us into political action. Construction suggests the building and maintenance of a thing. The thing she refers to as ourselves. Changing our attitude, struggling against the desire to succumb to easy armchair revolutionary style personality. And for me, I interpret this to mean intensifying the struggle. Words can mean different things to different people, and I hope that one of these quotes will impact you in such a way that uplifts you and guides you through this beautiful struggle. This is why being in an organization is important, more specifically a Pan-African socialist organization. The structure of this type of organization will help you to understand the enemy, be able to identify our objective, and study strategies and tactics that will help us bring about the fulfillment of our objective, which is Pan-Africanism, the ultimate and permanent solution to the present conditions Africans are facing worldwide, can be found in Pan-Africanism, which is the total liberation and unification of Africa under an all-African scientific socialist government. Once we are able to control the land, the wealth produced from the resources will bring about the power necessary to demand fair treatment and a bargaining chip towards the demand for fair pricing in the global marketplace, which translate to respect worldwide, and finally to liberation. We say join a Pan-African socialist organization and continue to study while heeding the words of our warrior ancestors. And if you're already a member of a revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization, we encourage your organization to help in building what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah called the All-African Committee for Political Coordination to more effectively politically educate our people and thus intensify the struggle for Pan-Africanism. So we say thank you for joining us today. And in revolutionary struggle, we always say forward ever, backward never.
tribute to Mama Mawina Kuyate by the All African Revolutionary People's Party, read by Na Ajele Awula Akua Sharp. In celebrating the 32nd Garvey Festival, may the spirit of Pan-Africanism grow from strength to strength as it moves towards the complete liberation of Africa and its sons and daughters worldwide. Mamaga, sister, Auntie Mawina Kuyate, who we celebrate today, showed a strong commitment to her work and dedicated the best of her life to building credible organizations that would go a long way to better the world. She was born on 31st March 1941 in Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States of America, and joined the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the AAPRP, in the 1970s, where she immediately took position in regards to emancipation and equality of the woman as an important key for the liberation and unification of Africa under the definitive role of a socialist government. It would also be noted that before joining forces with the AAPRP, Mawina fought for tenants' rights and welfare rights for people from all walks of life. Whilst with the AAPRP, she went on to become one of the founding members of the All African Women's Revolutionary Union, the AAWRU, the women's wing of the AAPRP by 1980, the coordinator of the union from 1984 to 1995, as well as a member of the Central Committee until she passed on September 3, 2002 in the Gambia in West Africa. She led demonstrations that brought to bear the continuous mistreatment of repressed people. Mamaga Mawina facilitated unity between the AAWRU and other women's wings of significant revolutionary Pan-Africanist parties, such as the PDG-RDA of Conakry, Guinea, Conakry, that was led by President Ahmed Sékou Touré, the PAIGC of Guinea-Bissau, and Cape Verde, also led by Amilcar Cabral, Sierra Leone's PANAFU, and South Africa's PAWO. She gave enormous support to the government and people of Cuba, and was ardent support for the visit to Harlem in 1999 by the then Cuban President Fidel Castro. Auntie Mawina gave support for the people of Palestine, steering several free Palestinian campaigns and not ending it there. It is known that she supported the people and government of Libya and led various delegations that oversaw the AAPRP and its affiliated organizations that broke the ban for travel to Libya as they protested extreme sanctions against a revolutionary Libyan state. Other notable activities she partook in were leading demonstrations in New York when an unarmed Guinean immigrant, Amadou Diallo, was shot 41 times and killed by the New York police. She was against the war in Iraq, as well as the invasion of Grenada. Sister Mawina led projects in Sierra Leone and the Gambia and supported the Revolutionary African Women's Union to travel to Guinea-Bissau, risking her life amidst unrest in the country then. She led the AAPRP and AAWRU delegations on the international front as they traveled to Libya and Kenya. She was very instrumental in aiding critical AAPRP work in South Africa. There is the Mawina Kuyate Daughters of Africa Award, which would not be forgotten, but given the best possible support it deserves always. This respectable daughter of significance often worked two jobs to facilitate numerous revolutionary members from across organizations with travel arrangements to get home to Africa. As the Nigerian proverb goes, a delicious stew will not last long in the pot. So did your time and transition onto glory. But we take confidence in the Namibian proverb that says, when you are thirsty in the desert, follow the birds and they will lead you to water. We indeed are following in your footsteps and will surely get the total liberation that we all seek for the oppressed and repressed masses. Ayeko Ochunlokpakpa, congratulations, good servant. Yawo Jogbang, sleep well. The sun will never set on your works. Aluta continua. Forward.
My name is Bennett Kwanzaa. a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Amilcar Cabral, one of the greatest sons of African soil, was a revolutionary Pan-Africanist who was born on 12th of September 1924 in Guinea-Bissau. Cabral was right for his speech titled Weapon of Theory, which was delivered in January 1966 at the Tricontinental Conference of the Peoples of Asia, Africa, and Latin America in Havana, Cuba. Cabral said most liberation movements and revolutionary organizations lack ideology and are very ignorant of the realities that must be changed. Cabral believed that ideology comes out of culture and culture finds its root among the people. So, to be able to crush imperialism, there must, and I repeat, there must always be an ideology born out of the culture of the people to raise the level of understanding of the people to take action for the change we seek. Cabral demonstrated the essence and need of an ideology in the revolution by leading the War of Independence against Portuguese colonialism in Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau. Imperialism must be crushed everywhere it is found among our people by using the fish in water approach to this revolution. The fish in water approach teaches us that whenever you need a fish, you go to where you can get the fish and not wait for the fish to come to you, because it will never come and it can never come. Cabral's lives and lessons continue to inspire we, the people of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, that for the revolution to be successful, we must always move to the people with an ideology to develop their level of understanding to crush imperialism. Thank you.
Marcus Garvey says that organization solves everything, answers all questions. Everything humans do, we do it through organizations. Families are a form of organization, schools are a form of organizations, churches and other religious institutions are all forms of organizations. When our people, African people, face the problems that we face, we need a particular form of organization. Our people have been scattered all over the planet, and we are the most oppressed people in the world. Our homeland, Africa, is oppressed and ripped off and raped by people, by exploiters from throughout the world. So we need a special form of organization. We need revolutionary Pan-African parties. Why do we need that? We need revolutionary Pan-African organizations to, one, connect our organization and our leadership to the people. Two, to help to train leadership. And three, to help continuing to inform ourselves about our enemy, the capitalist system and their derivatives, imperialism and neocolonialism. So we need revolutionary Pan-African organization. We need organizations which will last past generations, because our problem is not a problem that can be solved overnight. We need organizations that will keep going when leaders die or are assassinated. So revolutionary Pan-African organizations are critical for the liberation of our people. Join a Pan-African revolutionary organization. Join the PRSP or some other revolutionary Pan-African organization.
Greetings, Pan-African greetings to my African brothers and sisters on the African continent and in the diaspora. This is Tipe Lurato Dube speaking here. I am the Secretary for Information and Publicity with the Zimbabwean Movement of Pan-African Socialists. We're based in Gweri, Zimbabwe. We'd like to wish everyone a happy 32nd GarveyFest, and we'd like to continue, say, a luta continua. Let's continue doing this thing, celebrating Marcus Garvey and everything that is beautifully African. Today, I'm in the background, I'm playing some Mbira music by the group called some traditional Zimbabwean music. It's they're using what is called the Mbira instrument. It's like a piano. It's like a piano, and this song is entitled Tojireva Kupi, which means who do we tell? And this is music that this is music that our ancestors used to listen to, and it is said that whenever this instrument was played, you know, our ancestral spirits would start to manifest. And today I want to share with you two of our most powerful icons. The first one being Mbuya Nyanda. Mbuya Nyanda was born in 1840. She's female, and Mbuya means grandmother. And sometimes in like African traditional religion, Mbuya is a term of endearment. It's also a very term of respect, and refers to some of the most senior spirits, ancestral spirits. So Mbuya Nyanda is a powerful figure of resistance in Zimbabwean history, and she is the only woman in the Zimbabwean recorded history was recorded to have been somewhere way up our hierarchy in terms of traditional religion. She is one of the instigators of the first Chimurenga, which is the first war of liberation that was fought in Zimbabwe. She was later killed for her role, hung by the neck until she died by the then British South Africa police for her role in inspiring the first Chimurenga. Then the second person, and one of her most famous quote is "Mabonzo angu achapfuka," in Shona, which in English, which means that my bones will rise again. And we see her bones. We strongly believe that her bones did indeed rise again when the second Chimurenga was fought. And it is said that a lot of spirit mediums there's some spirit mediums who would channel her spirit, and that was very critical on the spiritual side in terms of attaining, strengthening our liberation fighters until the long protracted war of liberation was eventually won in 1918. Now, the second person that I would like to talk about is Robert Mugabe. Robert Mugabe is a Pan-African, icon. Everybody, you cannot be Pan-African, a Pan-Africanist and not know who Robert Mugabe is. He's one of the greatest, African leaders on this continent, and, subject to controversy, obviously. He was not a perfect man, but he is one person that is highly regarded in Zimbabwean society, and we're thankful to him because he is like a good father. He's one man who had the insight to leave his children an inheritance, which is the land. And today, as Zimbabweans, we're proud to say we're the only people in Africa who have 100% control over their land. And our society, regardless of what is happening, we're doing a pretty great job. We're able to provide food for ourselves, and most importantly, we have more young people who are becoming farmers and miners and all that stuff. So that's something to be proud of. So from Simopase and Gweru to you, to everybody else out there, to our brothers and sisters, stay safe during this COVID pandemic, and hopefully we pray that we'll be able to meet each other very soon. Bye-bye.
Do you know what you gave me for? Do you recognize? Do you realize the light? I know what you're aching for. Everything has a price. If you can see the light,
we living in a revolutionary age. Our people got nothing to lose but our chains. Modern day slaves barely make a living wage, overworked and underpaid, and someday it's gonna change. That's what they always say, we go to vote in vain. Supposed to be the land of the free, home of the brave. Got my mind thinking like a rebel in the Hunger Games. Catch a fire, get your bow and arrow, set this world in flames. I say a prayer with my elders, burning sage on this warrior path. May we be unafraid, cause long as the system is wrong, I won't behave. Power, we coming for hours, Trump better tuck his chain. They gravy train came straight from my slavery chain. Sweating in the field with machetes, cutting sugar cane. I can hear the ancestors crying out from the grave. The struggle you endure do it for us wasn't done in vain. I know what I'm for, and I know what I'm against. My intentions is pure, I'm not riding the fence. If it ain't about power, then it don't make sense. We tired of letting it slide, our people getting lynched, and it's already red level on the pressure gauge. Any second it could blow like a hand grenade. All these schools whack, got the youth disengaged. Bloods and Crips walking around in a purple haze, killing ourselves like wolves licking on a blade. Young bloods, we need to come together under one brigade. Love coming back again, hate going down the drain. Revolution on the way, it just might be today, but it's gonna be okay.
Marcus Garvey said, "I trust that you will so live today as to realize that you are masters of your own destiny, masters of your fate. If there's anything you want in this world, it is for you to strike out with confidence and faith in self and reach for it." Milwaukee, it is my hope that in 2020, we continue to realize this for ourselves and for our city. My name is Alexandra Skeeter, and I was asked to share a message with GarveyFest on behalf of the Wisconsin Coalition to normalize relations with Cuba. Because for the past 6 years, I have been studying to become a doctor at the Latin American School of Medicine in Havana, Cuba, started by Fidel Castro in 1998 as a response to the growing need for accessible, preventative, holistic healthcare worldwide. Growing up on the north side of Milwaukee in a biracial family, my dad taught me to be proud of being Black. This lesson fueled my love for my education and fueled my love for my people. Less than 5% of the medical doctors in the United States are Black, and only 2% are Black women. I am humbled and honored to be able to increase these percentages and do what my ancestors were capable of doing but didn't have the opportunity to. During this COVID-19 pandemic, we've all witnessed the incredible Nobel Peace Prize-worthy humanitarian relief efforts of Cuba's Henry Reeve International Medical Brigade. Just one example of the medical advances and support that Cuba has contributed to the medical community worldwide, despite the extremely inhumane and oppressive economic blockade imposed by the U.S. Imagine what Cuban medicine could do without limitations. This is why we must continue to call for the end of the economic blockade. Not only does the blockade negatively affect Cubans, it affects all of us. It has the greatest impact on Black Americans and Black folks worldwide. I'll explain 3 ways Cuba's healthcare system has made advances that would improve health outcomes for the Black community. In Cuba, healthcare is accessible to all people, which contributes to the country's high life expectancy rate. It is even comparable to that of the United States. Cuba is able to achieve these health outcomes at 1/3 of the cost the United States spends because its healthcare system prioritizes the health of its population over the wealth of corporations. Here in the United States, hospitals face understaffing and are being forced to close because they are deemed to not turn a profit. These are issues you do not see in Cuba, and in fact, you see the exact opposite. Cuba continues to see days without new COVID cases and has not stopped exporting doctors around the world during this global crisis. Cuba is even willing to provide medical care to U.S. citizens, which would benefit Black and Brown communities that are disproportionately affected by coronavirus. But of course, the blockade prevents this from happening. Every year, diabetes claims the lives of thousands of Black Americans, and almost 1 million U.S. citizens are diagnosed with diabetic foot ulcers, a condition that increases the risk of lower limb amputations. Annually, an estimated 60,000 people in the U.S. undergo diabetic foot amputations, many of which could be prevented by the Cuban advancements recently made in this field of study. In 2015, Cuba eliminated the transmission of HIV and syphilis between mother and child. Medical advancements like these are especially important to note as HIV and syphilis also disproportionately affect Black and African people. One of the directors of the World Health Organization noted that eliminating the transmission of a virus is one of the greatest public health achievements possible, and that this is a major victory in our long fight against HIV and sexually transmitted infections, and an important step towards having an AIDS-free generation. However, because of the economic blockade, many do not have access to these life-saving treatments. Marcus Garvey reminds us that with confidence, you have won before you have started. And so I leave you with all the pride, confidence, and determination Cuba has taught me, and invite you to reflect on what being in solidarity with Cuba and the Black community looks like in your life. Thank you for allowing me to share with you.
We have not as a country learned to coexist with people who have a different political and economic system than we do. Now it's the responsibility of the U.S. to end the blockade, to normalize relations, to begin to have trade, to do the things that countries ought to do together, to exchange ideas and resources and material. We have a responsibility, and that responsibility is to stand, is to oppose our policy, to seek to change it. We have a responsibility to understand that as we are working in the world for justice for ourselves, we cannot ignore justice for others, that we must be world citizens, and we must work to bring peace and justice worldwide.
What's going on, everybody? We are the Embalias, and we wanted to welcome you to GarveyFest. We also wanted to take a moment to talk to you about Watoto Uhuru Shule, or Children's Freedom School. It's a program put on, and it runs from September to June. In this past year, with the pandemic, we were able to meet online virtually via Zoom, and it's important because we were able to teach our youth more about our people. We know we don't get it in our school systems, so we wanted to make sure that they were introduced to more people who look like us, walk like us, and talk like us, and all the contributions we made to society. And how we start off every Watoto is by saying the pledge. So, pledge. So let's say it. We are an African people. Today is Saturday, August 21st, 2021. We pledge to do our best and work and play and struggle for our people in a positive way. Long live the African Revolution. Forward ever, backwards never.
Welcome to GarveyFest.
Welcome to GarveyFest.
Welcome. Welcome.
Yay.
Hello, Victor Barnett, Director of Running Rebels Community Organization. I wanted to speak briefly in regards to some inspiration that came from someone from the past that means a lot to the work that we do here, and it's standing on your principles. I think Nelson Mandela set an example of a person that had his beliefs, and he really stuck to those beliefs to the point that he could have changed and decided to give in regards to apartheid, but he spent many years in prison because he was standing on the principles of wrong being done, and he did not change. I think that's one of the principles of Running Rebels, is that our community is a lot of ills and a lot of things that aren't right. But I think as we teach the young people and try to inspire the young people, we try to get them to understand that, standing on some principles so that they won't fall for anything. And I think Mandela definitely drove that home. And there's been some other men in Milwaukee and around our nation that have been able to show strong principles. And I think that's one of the things our young people need to understand, and that has inspired the work that we do here at Running Rebels Community Organization. One thing I would like to add in ending is the respect that we have for a special person. Mbalia was a person that often spoke to me about principles in the same way as Mandela. And the struggles of Running Rebels in the beginning years, it was definitely inspirational from him. Some of the conversations we had that kept me uplifted, and I definitely appreciate him.
We keep on fighting to end domination. Far right. We keep marching through the hills, mountains, crossing many streams. We're moving to the north, west, south, and east. Resistance against our foes. Jah go let them drink their woes and serve humanity with integrity. We break down walls of oppressions, lock doors of dominations, set the captives free and misery. Even though the battle is hot, we keep fighting without retreat till we defeat the enemy. Even though the battle is tough, we keep fighting without retreat till we defeat the enemy. We keep on fighting to end domination. We keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting to end domination. We keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting. We fight hard blows, you know, to take our lands, we know, to make sure we are free from what we sow. We fight for Africa unity, each according to ability. West sons and daughters will be living with dignity. Even though the battle is tough, we keep fighting without retreat till we defeat the enemy. We keep on fighting to end domination. We keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting to end domination. We keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting. Millions of Stephen because millions of sepultures for Jam, for Jam, for Jam, for Jam. Millions of Stephen because millions of sepultures for Jam, for Jam, for Jam. We keep on fighting to end domination. We keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting to end domination. We keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting. Far right, rebel music.
Beats Prime on the mix.
Greetings, African people. We would like to thank you all for taking time out your day to tune in to the 32nd annual GarveyFest. The 32nd annual GarveyFest. First and foremost, we like to thank everybody who took part in the program here. In the alphabetical order, we say Asante Sana to the AAPRP, that's the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Asante Sana to PACA, which is the Pan-African Community Action. We want to say Asante Sana to the Running Rebels, a youth organization here in Milwaukee. We'd like to say Asante Sana to the Wisconsin Coalition to Normalize Relations with Cuba. We'd like to say Asante Sana to ZIMPAS, which is the Zimbabwe Movement of Pan-African Socialists. We like to say Asante Sana to one of the Watoto families who sent in a video about the importance of Watoto Uhuru Shule. We like to send Asante Sana out to Dr. Michael Williams, Pan-African scholar who contributed today as well. I am Brother Terrence of the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. If anybody out there wants to contact us, reach out to us, build with us, connect with us, share more information with us, here's some basic contact information. First and foremost, you can contact us by email. That is panafricanrsp@gmail.com. I say that again, panafricanrsp@gmail.com. We are also on Facebook. If you search or click in Pan-African Socialists, our page will come up on Facebook, Pan-African Socialists on Facebook. We have a website as well. That is the www.panafricanrevolutionarysocialistparty.org. Yes, I know that's a lot of letters to type in, but please be patient. I'll say it once again. It's www.panafricanrevolutionarysocialistparty.org. On our website, you will find just a couple items. First and foremost is our annual calendar. This is our 2021 calendar here. Heed the words of the warriors. Guided messages to uplift African people. So this was our annual theme this year. Also on the website, you will find new leaflets, about current information on the African reality around the world. You will find information about our Kitabu Circle book club. We have a book club that meets every month, the Kitabu Circle. So if you click the link on that, you can find information about joining the Kitabu Circle book club. Also, you heard from one of the Watoto Uhuru Shule families today, our Children's Freedom School. If you're interested in finding out the start date to the next session, the next semester, you can find that information on the website as well. And last but not least, we hold a monthly podcast called Africa Must Unite. That podcast can be found, the new episodes can be found on the website as well as SoundCloud. So if you go to SoundCloud, you can also check those monthly podcasts out. In closing, we would like to say, remember, organization is the key. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization. A union of African states, a union of African socialist states is on the horizon. We say forward ever, backward never.